Hi, everyone. I'm Thomas Murray Dawson with Center for Political Education. I'm joining you from the occupied lands of the Ohlone people in the East Bay of California. As always, we encourage all our participants located in the Bay Area to pay their Shumi land tax, which you can do by following the link in the chat. Speaking of the chat, it will be disabled for these calls, except for us to share information with the audience. If you have questions you'd like to get answered, please use the Q&A function at the bottom of your Zoom screen. In that same toolbar, you can find the CC button to enable closed captioning. We are also grateful to have ASL interpreters on hand throughout this call. On behalf of CPE Bay Resistance, the Arab Resource and Organizing Center, and the Anti-Police Terror Project, welcome to the first of our weekly PSA calls, or Palestine Solidarity Announcements. These calls will be a space for us to provide you with weekly updates on what's happening in Palestine, the most recent calls to action, and ways organizations, activists, and other supporters can join the ongoing solidarity work for Palestine in the Bay Area. As we said during our ceasefire mass meeting in Oakland just a few weeks ago, the urgency to end the genocide in Gaza and to achieve a ceasefire only intensifies with each passing day. Our endurance in this fight is absolutely consequential to bringing lasting peace and saving Palestinian lives. These calls are a way to keep us coordinated on strategy and to keep the momentum going. Today's agenda is as follows. First, somatics practitioner and organizer with Families for Ceasefire, Melissa Fan, will lead us in a short somatics grounding practice. Then we'll hear from Ziad Abbas, the executive director of Middle East Children's Alliance, about the humanitarian situation on the ground in Gaza. I'll share a very brief update on some important political developments regarding the calls for ceasefire in the US and at the UN. And then we'll hear from Sabrine Imter from Iraq on recent and upcoming actions for Palestine. Michelle Mascarenas and Shana Curitin will share key talking points for Families for Ceasefire. And finally, Kimi Lee, Executive Director of Bay Rising, will close us out with an overview of key legislative action and next steps for you to stay plugged in and get involved in upcoming solidarity work. Thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to growing the fight for Palestine together with you in the weeks and days ahead. And with that, I'll turn it over to Melissa. Melissa, you're still muted.
My bad. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. I'm going to offer a somatic grounding and hope practice today. But before we get started, I wanted to make the connection between individual and interpersonal somatic work and larger movement work. So the field of somatics encompasses not just our physical body, but our emotions, sensations, intuition, and connection to God or spirit, all of which we call the soma. Our particular soma is shaped by larger social, historical, and cultural contexts, as well as our family, close communities, genetics, and personal histories of trauma and healing. Western science is now catching up to what indigenous peoples all over the world have known for millennia. The soma constitutes the majority of our human experience, contrary to what our minds may like to tell us. The conscious mind is like the tip of the iceberg, and our soma is the majority which lies underneath the water. So when we are talking about change work on an individual and interpersonal scale, to be effective, we need to be addressing the soma directly. For over 2 months now, we have been witness to the escalation of the genocide in Palestine. We know that this has been going on for 75 years now, and the last 2 months have only been a continuation of the increasing brutality of the Israeli occupation forces. Every day, we see the most horrific violence enacted upon Palestinian people. To witness the violent death of one person is traumatic. To witness the violent death of over 20,000 people, almost half of whom are children, is beyond devastating, beyond traumatic. There are no words which can capture this feeling, but we hold it in our somas. it lives in our bodies. These are times of immense grief. Please know that if you are struggling emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, that is normal. That is the normal response to genocide. We owe Palestine endurance, and we cannot do this if we don't address the collective trauma we are experiencing. We cannot let ourselves burn out. We cannot let ourselves fall into despair or hopelessness. We cannot let ourselves and our communities become incapacitated by grief. All systems of oppression require the othering of our somas because it is through this othering that it becomes possible to other a whole group of people and to maintain justification for that othering. This state of chronic dissociation from our soma, from each other, and from the land is normalized and rewarded under colonialism. We are starting with somatics because liberation requires embodiment. When we are in connection to our own somas, we can inhabit our full agency, and that is what it takes to first achieve ceasefire and then a free Palestine. As Audre Lorde so brilliantly said, the master's tools will not dismantle the master's house. So let's begin. If you are able, I invite you now to join me first by finding a comfortable position. You can be standing, sitting, or laying down. And when you find that comfortable position, first attune to your internal experience. Begin by noticing your breath. And I invite you now to find your toes. If you have 10 toes, find each and every single toe. And if you don't have toes, find the lowest extremity that you do have. And now toggle back and forth between these parts of your body. If it's your toes, first pay keen attention to your left big toe, and then switch and pay attention to your right big toe. And we're gonna toggle back and forth between the two sides of our body going up the body. And so moving on up now to your knees. First, paying attention to your left knee. Just noticing the sensations that you experience in your left knee without judgment. And switching over to your right knee. And now going up to your hips. Doing this at a pace that feels right for you. And now moving up to your rib cage. And your shoulders. And now to your ears. And your eyes. The reason that we do this is because switching from one side of the body, paying attention to one side of the body and then the next, is a regulating activity. It downregulates your nervous system so that you can have full access to your own agency. And very briefly now, I'm going to invite you, as you're attuned to your internal reality, to recall a feeling of hope. Notice the sensations of hope in your body. Notice where it lives. Notice if it has a color or texture or a movement. And for the rest of this call, I'm going to invite you to hold on to this feeling as much as possible. All right, thank you. I'll turn it back to you, Thomas.
Thank you, Melissa. A reminder to please use the Q&A function to send us your questions. And in the meantime, I will send it to Ziad from Mecca for an update on the humanitarian situation in Gaza.
Sabah al khair. Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ziad Abbas. I'm working with Mecca, and part of our work, it's inside Gaza, and we're still working until today in Gaza. But the last 2 days, actually, we lost connections. We are not able to communicate with our staff members or our partners or our volunteers inside Gaza. So I have an updates for you, and I know Melissa, she spoke in her introduction. This didn't start on October 7th, and this is started 75 years ago, and I will go even before. But just I like to remind the people when we speak about Gaza, Gaza all over the news. So I want to share with you some of the footages that maybe some of you already saw it, but just to remind ourselves what's going on there and our goal to stop the genocide in Gaza. And to go back a little bit, I'm going back just 16 years ago. It's about the siege that the people in Gaza, they are living under siege for almost 16 years. And just for the people, they are not aware of this map. This is Gaza Strip. It's not a huge, it's tiny area. And it's 2.3 million people. They are living on 139 square miles. This is the north of Gaza. This is the area here, north of Gaza. And this is the middle area, Khan Yunis and Rafah. And these areas right now, it's no connection. People, they cannot move in between. And most still, the Israelis, they are still fighting in this area, the north. Even the ground troops, they are all over in this area. Not all over the area. The ground troops, the tanks mostly, they are only controlling where they are. But they don't control every street, every neighborhood, every part of the city. So most of the right now, the resistance or the attacks in this area in Gaza Strip, and especially and in the middle area, and some of it where the Israelis entered, but they entered in this area, it became very difficult. They separated the north from the middle area from the south, Khan Yunis in this area, but people still they can move. 2 days ago, we succeed to take from Rafah some stuff, food parcels, trucks, and we smuggled it to the middle area. When I say smuggled, alternative roads, the main roads, it's not there. The people, they can't use it. But I want to say, as you see here, I don't know if you see behind, I can see behind the photos, the other screen. And there are 5 gates controlled by the Israelis. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. This is the major one. It's called Erez. And one gate, actually, when we speak about the siege, the fences, the military base, etc., it's one gate here in Rafah. This is the main gate where some of the aid can come to enter to Gaza. And here, all the military ships controlling all over Gaza. And of course, here, the air forces and the drones all the time inside Gaza. And when we think about Gaza, 2.3 million people, but over 50% of the people in Gaza, they are children. And I remember Howard Zinn, he said, every war is a war against children. And the war actually, and this genocide against the children in Gaza Strip, because the majority of the people living in Gaza, they are children. And we speak about Israel as the largest, the 4th largest military in the world. And these are the weapons they are using, some of these weapons. And don't forget, Gaza now become like laboratory where they use different kind of weapons, especially rockets and certain kind of bombs. They received it from United States. All these weapons, actually, they received it from United States. Gaza, for all since 1948, they are resisting against the British settler, the British colonial system. They are resisting the Israelis. And this is like, just I remind the people with this photo, maybe you remember it. It's from 2018, the return march, when the people in Gaza, where they started like taking the streets and go to the borders to protest because they are struggling to return back. They want to return back to their own villages and their homes, because the majority of the people living in Gaza, actually, they are refugees. Most of them coming from the villages is not far from Gaza. And here we come after October 7th, and these are some of the footages you can see how they are targeting the bombs. And these are the results. These are actually new photos coming right now, just a few days ago, where people, they are killed and attacked and living this reality, children, moms, etc. And of course, the anger everywhere. This is a photo like screaming and screaming for everyone in this world. These are the shelters, actually, which few hours ago, they again attacked one of the shelter, actually, in Khan Yunis, and then coming later. These shelters, actually, they are all the time under attack, especially in the north of Gaza. And if you saw these kind of photos a few days ago for naked Palestinian by the soldiers, and the way how they try to dehumanize the Palestinian, they actually arrest the people, they are staying in the shelters, and they consider them, they are the Palestinian fighters. But later on, it's become very clear, just they attack the shelters, the hospitals, and arrest people, and they show it to the media as they are. Yeah, the attack is continuing. And last week, actually, we lost one of our colleagues. And here, just I want to honor her. I want to honor everyone in Gaza killed, everyone injured, everyone living in Gaza. But this is one of our colleagues. She was killed last week. And she's working in Edward Said Library, Dua al-Masri. And she worked in Edward Said Library in Gaza Strip. And she's still under the rebels. This is the sad part. She and her family, they couldn't reach out to her, but most of them family, they are killed. And another one, as you know, there are many people that are killed in Gaza. And I'm coming to the statistics, but journalists, with this journalist, Samer Abu Dakka, today, a few hours ago, if you will go Al Jazeera Live, he's working with Al Jazeera. This cameraman, he was killed a few hours ago. Now in Gaza, 90 journalists killed. These are the numbers coming. And of course, if you speak about the rest of the people, 18,600 people, they are already killed. But among them, journalists, medical teams, over 500 people from medical teams. And there are some other reports actually coming. They are showing that they are targeting specialists. You will have some doctors, physicians, they were specialists in the heart, in the kidney, in different parts of the body. They were targeted and they were killed with their families. When I speak about over 500 of the medical teams, there are doctors, nurses, ambulance drivers, All these, some of them killed inside the hospital, some of them, they were targeted and assassinated in their houses. And here are the numbers, and this is the most difficult part for me as a Palestinian to start speak about my own people as numbers. But sometimes we need to reflect on that, because each one of them, they are a human being. 18,600 people, they are killed. And of course, 8,000 reported missing. Actually, between 8 to 10,000 people they are. So the number is close actually to 30,000 people killed in Gaza. 70% of them, they are children and women. 51,000, actually more, they are already injured. Now, we have 1.8 million people, they are displaced in Gaza Strip. And some of them displaced, it's not necessary they moved from the north to the south. Some of them moved to the south, but some of them, they are moving inside Gaza. I have a friend I'm in touch with whenever we have internet. He's living between Jabalia, Shata refugee camp in the north of Gaza, but he and his family and his relative moving all the time. People in Gaza, they are following they survive on their luck and their collective spirit. People support each other, try to take care of each other. But first in their luck, if they are surviving or not. And of course, 60% of the housing in Gaza, they are already destroyed. Disease, this is another disaster that the people in Gaza, they are facing. It's the disease spread everywhere in Gaza Strip. And 360,000 cases of diarrhea, among them 36,000 children. They are suffering from diarrhea. And this is related for the whole situation. They cut the power, they cut the water, no medicine, and no food. And people there are, and right now we as a human rights organization or aid organization, we are coming to the phase that we start saying after 70 days that the people in Gaza, they are facing massive hunger. And this is the most dangerous thing, and spread the disease. And just I want to add that in Gaza Strip right now is the rain. And there are many areas flooded in different parts. The infrastructure already destroyed in Gaza Strip. And this is something like it will spread more disease and bring more disease. Even if we say right now that the genocide will stop right now, we will need years to recover from that. And our work, it will be very hard to recover, but we try to reduce the impact on the people. But still, it's still very hard to handle this, because this genocide, we had a slow genocide during the siege, 16 years, but now they speed the genocide where the numbers is killing, and even they are targeting the future of Palestinian. And more in West Bank. Just want to let the people remember that West Bank is not in better situation. They are under attack in Jenin, the killing, like even yesterday, 12 people killed in Jenin, and just a few hours ago, they withdrew from Jenin, and in different part of West Bank where people, they are attacked. 286 people, they are killed. Over 4,000 people, they are arrested. Settlers, they are lashing everywhere. And some people, they are already, by the settler violence, they are already moved. 1,014 people, they left their area because they were under attack daily. Now, this is the situation, this is the reality. We are in touch with people in Gaza, and I know this is the photo I love all the time from some of your actions in the ground. Yeah, our action is very important and very necessary in this moment. And what we are struggling is just, we need to have ceasefire right now and stop the genocide. I want to add one thing before I finish. Yeah, Gaza is going through very difficult time for everyone. Gaza exposed the world, exposed the value of the human being, exposed that what they called international community. The only hope for the people in Gaza is people like us. People, they are taking the streets. People, they are standing in solidarity with Palestine. People, they are taking an action. And as Thomas said 2 weeks ago, he said, your action can save life. And I want to say that your action, repeat, your action can save life. It's very important what we are doing, and we need to do more. And the last thing I want to end is with the message that I received from 2 days from my colleagues in the ground and from our partners when we speak with them. By the way, guys, people in Gaza, despite what they are going through, and it's really survival issue for them. And each call, maybe it will be the last call between us. You can feel it. They don't say it. Even sometimes they make fun of it. Maybe this is the last call. Bye-bye. Take care. And it's the most hard part. But people in Gaza, they are still optimistic. People, they are very proud, and they say it. They want the people all over the world. They are in solidarity with the people in Gaza, to be proud of the people of Gaza, to feel strong about it, because Gaza is not just fighting the Zionist settler colonialism. They are resisting and fighting the whole settler colonialism in the world, and the empire, the imperialism, all of this. And they say, just be proud, stay in, do whatever you can do to support us. This is the most important thing. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ziad. Thank you so much for that sobering news and for all your tireless work connecting with our Palestinian comrades in Palestine and in Gaza. I'm going to give a very brief update and share my screen, and I will try to go through this very quickly. But there's some political developments that we thought noteworthy to just make note of and provide some context around. It's true that the progress towards a ceasefire has been unacceptably slow among key decision makers at the national and international levels. But just as Ziad said, it can't be emphasized enough that the actions that many of you on this call are taking in the Bay Area, along with other direct actions and campaigns across the globe and the US, are indeed having an impact and moving us closer to a ceasefire. A few key developments this week in the US and at the UN help illustrate that point. With regard to our own domestic politics, it remains true that the words and deeds of President Biden throughout the first month of bombings in Gaza by the Israeli military were abhorrent, glib, and entirely unsympathetic to the suffering of Palestinians. However, there are clear signs of an emerging rift between Biden and Benjamin Netanyahu, with the president explicitly warning Israel that it's starting to lose support because of its indiscriminate bombings, and indicating that the positions of the more conservative members of the current Israeli government, including their rejection of a Palestinian state, are untenable. It's also true that many have found Bernie Sanders' refusal to call for a ceasefire to be disturbing and surprising, though perhaps more so because of his stature and leadership within and among progressives and social movements. But despite his lingering resistance to naming a ceasefire, Sanders made his strongest statements against Israel's attacks in Gaza this week and sent a letter to Joe Biden urging him to back a humanitarian ceasefire at the UN and reject a congressional proposal to send $10 billion in military support to Israel, which he also voted against. These shifts, as late and as inadequate as they may seem, do show cracks in the previously unquestioned support Israel has relied upon thus far and create opportunities for our movements to continue to widen our openings for a ceasefire. And as of today, 62 congressional members have called for a ceasefire. Two other quick notes: major unions, the United Auto Workers and the American Postal Workers Union helped lead a contingent of labor in calling for a ceasefire alongside Representative Rashida Tlaib on Tuesday in Washington, D.C. And Sean Fain, the head of UAW, which has led some major strike victories, said that a ceasefire was, quote, what the majority of nations have called for, and, quote, what the majority of Americans want. Lastly, there's a Rainbow Push and other faith leaders have called for an emergency ceasefire summit, which was scheduled to take place this week, but will actually take place in January. And finally, at the international level, we saw our biggest advancement towards a ceasefire this week, which has been largely stymied by the U.S. in the UN Security Council, where a vote failed as recently as last Friday because of a U.S. veto. On Tuesday, after the UN Secretary General invoked Article 99 of the UN Charter, citing the likely collapse of humanitarian services in Gaza, Egypt and Mauritania introduced a resolution calling for an immediate humanitarian ceasefire in Gaza, and it passed overwhelmingly with 153 nations in favor, 23 abstentions, and only 10 opposed, including, of course, the United States and Israel. And as shameful as that is for us in the US, this resolution does signal the deepening isolation of the US and Israel with the rest of the world. And again, it makes it imperative for us to continue pressing our government, particularly at the federal level, to call for a ceasefire. So to talk more about the actions that are applying that pressure and how we're taking to the streets online and with our elected officials and what's ahead, I'm going to turn it over to Sabrine.
Thomas. Hi guys, my name is Sabrine. I'm a youth organizer with the Arab Race Organizing Center, AROC. I have a couple of actions for y'all to do in the Bay Area and some updates on what's been happening. So one call to action is, some of y'all may know that AROC is now being investigated by the San Francisco Unified School District because of us supporting Arab youth organizers 2 months ago in their walkouts around the Bay Area, and particularly in San Francisco. In response, the San Francisco School District has been really just ignoring Arab families, ignoring Arab youth and what's happening. And literally they met with our community like last week with families. And right after, a couple of days later, they launched this like investigation into AROC because this other racist, right-wing, moderate SF group behind the recall of progressive school board members in San Francisco sent them a letter telling them to investigate AROC and suspend our MOU, which is a Memorandum of Understanding. All organizations have to have one with SFUSD in order to do work in SFUSD. This is largely problematic for a lot of reasons. They're attacking our pro-Palestine work, saying that we violated our contract, and also coming after the only Arab organization in San Francisco that actually does work with Arab families and Arab youth. I think Claire put the link. Let me make sure. Yes. So that's a petition. If you sign this petition, it sends letters. It sends a letter to the superintendent, to the district, and to Board of Education members for SF, telling them to suspend this investigation, to stop this investigation. And also it lists out demands that our community and our youth came up with for SFUSD in order to repair this harm. Like this is a really racist investigation. And it's resulted in like our youth being questioned by like principals, administrators, and their teachers at schools in the past week. Actually, let me share my screen really fast. Sorry. So this is what the petition looks like. And it just has like a letter. And then if you just go down and you sign it, it sends a letter to the superintendent and the Board of Education members. And then there's a couple of mobilizations happening this week. Sorry, trying to click. Okay. Some of you guys might be familiar with this. If you're not, this is a very useful tool that has everything that's happening in the Bay Area for Palestine in one place, so you don't have to go to different Instagrams and different links. If you go to the if you go to araborganizing.org, my bad. If you go to araborganizing.org and you go to events and you click calendar, it takes you to this calendar that has events that are happening. It usually shows you to up to 1 week, like when you first open it, but if you go down, it has like all the events that are happening. This weekend we have a labor rally for Palestine happening in Oakland. That's going to be happening tomorrow. We have a Shut It Down event happening in San Francisco also tomorrow. And then also there's been a lot of stuff happening this week to urge Alex Padilla to call for a ceasefire and support the ceasefire movement. And you can also submit events here if you want to. It's updated pretty regularly and separated by the different areas in the Bay Area. So if you want to look at East Bay, South Bay, whatever. But yeah, we encourage you to continue to come out to these mobilizations, as Ziad was talking about. Like, it's so important for us to continue to be on the streets and continue to take action, whether that's just signing a petition urging SFUSD to suspend their racist investigation, or showing up, supporting our labor allies who are supporting Palestine. Thank you. That's it on my end.
Thank you so much, Sabrine, and thank you to AROC and Palestinian Youth Movement and Mecca and all of our organizations within the Palestinian community that are taking leadership in this moment in all sorts of ways, and emphasize the importance of all of us also showing up in solidarity with them, particularly when they are under attack. We're going to turn now to Shayna and Michelle to talk about some talking points for families and the work of Families for Ceasefire.
Right on. Thank you all. Appreciate folks being here. We wanted to take a few minutes knowing that many of us may be seeing relatives that we may not often see at other times during the holidays, what may be the holidays for some people. And so we just wanted to share a few tips, knowing that one of the most important things that we can be doing right now is to make sure that Gaza and Palestine and the people who are under attack are front and center in the minds and hearts of everyone in the world, but certainly in the United States, which has been really blacked out by the media, or blocked out, I should say, by the media. And so wanted to just share a few kind of tips, thoughts. We also have one article that we can drop in the chat. And I'll just share, like, from my own experience, you know, I have two sisters, well, three sisters, but two on very different points of this. And one just came back from Israel, sent a Christmas card with a picture and a message. And, you know, that may be a conversation that I don't broach in a family setting. But another sister that is, you know, that sent a dove on the card this year instead of the usual manger. I may have more of an opening to, you know, to talk about. I will take that opening, right? So just wanting to remind us that we can be choiceful in the conversations that we're having as we, you know, lead with love. Encourage folks to utilize some of the somatic practices that Melissa just shared, or the practices that you have in your own life around just how you ground and center yourself to enter these conversations, and your sort of like what you're trying to get out of that conversation, and to breathe through it. One of the things I think is most important is to really start with, like, share how you're feeling, right? Like, I'm not sleeping well. I'm having trouble, you know, focusing. I'm doing too much. I'm crying a lot, you know, whatever the things are that that you're experiencing, given that you are a person that they care about. And then to, you know, bridge to Palestinian people that you know, or have heard directly from, like Zaid just now, right? To center the voices of Palestinians in this moment, and in terms of what they are experiencing, since that is the center of, you know, should be the center of our conversations. And we know that many people on this continent are not hearing those stories directly. And so it is important to, you know, share those sources. And remember that what folks are seeing on mainstream media may differ, like, vastly from what you are watching and seeing. And so really just to breathe through it, to ask questions, to be curious, because you are also learning from this conversation, right? What people are taking in, what they're hearing, can also help you to understand better how we as a movement are moving. And then, of course, are there any connections that you can make, either with your own family stories, your own histories of struggle, you know, this person and what you know about their history. If they're an older person, were they active on ending apartheid in South Africa back in the day, for example? So those are some of the tips that we wanted to share. And then I'm going to pass it over to Shayna as well, to share more about Families for Ceasefire and how we can talk to kids. Thanks.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Yeah, I just wanted to continue to add on to what Michelle said. I'm Shana with Families for Ceasefire. And during this time when your kiddos are off of school, where you might be seeing families and their children, just an encouragement to bring them in as well, to know that they're also sitting in the world and the emotions and the space that we all are. They see us having big feelings. Hopefully, we're bringing them to actions. And encouraging and inviting everybody to know that children have an amazing capacity if we give them the chance, and that we share things in a developmentally appropriate way. We invite you to join us at Families for Ceasefire. I believe the website's familiesforceasefire.org, which is part of a national call to invite in families and children and schools and educators to do what we can to support our Palestinian freedom, right, and to support this ceasefire. I think the couple tips that I want to share is just to start with your feelings, start with your emotion. Hey, I'm feeling kind of sad. Some of the reasons that I'm feeling sad are because there are some people who are out in Palestine who are losing their lives, or who are having a hard time, or who are not safe. Books are a really, really excellent resource. There's some really amazing books and content creation and all of that that's happening to support us. And how do we talk to our kids and the young people in our lives about what's going on? And most importantly, how can they use their voice and their power to engage as well? So we welcome you to join us to the Family for Ceasefire events, both so that your kids can be engaged, as well as so that you can show up as your full self as a family. And as a parent, I know for myself, as a parent of young children, it's important to have a space where my kids can crawl around and play with chalk and know that they're going to be engaged, so that I can show up as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle and Shana. Michelle, did you want to add something else as well?
Yeah, thanks, Thomas. I just wanted to share that, well, actually two things. Can I share about the action that we just did just now, since there is?
Please go ahead.
So this week, well, first of all, AROC and CARE and other Arab organizations have been working extremely hard to get through to legislators and hold meetings with our senators in particular, and Congress people, to call for a ceasefire. This week, there was an action on Tuesday at Senator Padilla's office, a sit-in, and then also an action outside. And then after that action, a letter was sent from a number of labor, immigrant rights, climate justice, Arab and Jewish organizations, and we got, well, AROC got a meeting with a staffer, not with Senator Padilla, which is, is really the need, is to meet directly with the senator. So I have this beautiful backdrop here because I just got off of a Zoom call. We had a meeting with the staffer, well, Lada and Jewish Voices for Peace had a meeting with the staffer and CARE and a number of other sign-ons to that letter. And 325 of us joined the Zoom. So that was a fun party that we just had. And I just want to share that share that as a way to say there's a lot of creative ways that people are engaging in putting pressure on our representatives, as well as corporations, and, boycotting, of course, the city council resolutions. There's just like this huge number of opportunities for folks to engage directly. And we want to support people in getting plugged into organization. And so immediately following this call, Annie and I, who are both part of this host group, are going to be hosting a separate Zoom for folks who aren't yet plugged into an organization, but want to figure out how to better connect. You probably didn't get the text that you know, we were doing this Zoom call because that, for example, has to be like much more confidential. There's lots of public actions, there's lots of other things. So yeah, we'll put in a link in just a minute. And then after this call is over, you can join that Zoom, and we'll just chat with folks about what are ways that you want to plug in directly. Thanks.
Thanks, Michelle. And to close this out, finally, I'll hand it over to Kimberly.
Yes. So, hey, everyone, thank you for staying with us for this hour. I know that was a lot of information that you all just took in. So appreciation to all the panelists and for everyone staying with us. We have over 200 people on the call. And so what we wanted to do is just remind folks, it is holiday season for some people. There is no holiday in Palestine, but our Congress representatives are coming home. And so this is where we can go knock on their doors, say hello, drop into their offices. We want to tell them there's no break, there's no holiday happening in Palestine, right? To remind them what's going on. And they have not sided with us, right? So remember to go to the ceasefire tracker to see if your representative has taken a stand. There's 62 Congress people right now that are supporting ceasefire, and there's also a resolution, Cori Bush's resolution. But Senator Padilla and Senator Butler have not taken a position. And so those are both Padilla's LA, Butler is in the Bay. So we want folks to think about these folks, right? They're coming home. What can we do over the next 2 weeks? One thing we've heard is there's so many phone calls going to them, they stopped answering their phone and their voicemail is full. So we know we need to show up. Maybe it's postcards. Maybe you are writing holiday cards to your family. Maybe it's time you do some cards to them. We also want to thank the people that have said yes and who are supporting ceasefire. So there's a list of folks that are supporting the ceasefire. We're going to drop that in the chat, but also send that to you later. So think about sending them a thank you. It's also really important because they're getting a lot of pressure. And as we see nationally what's happening, our representatives that have taken a stand are getting attacked. And there's millions of dollars getting poured into elections next year that are going to push things more to the right. And so it's important for us to stand up now. So what we want folks to do, think about this home for the holidays, who's coming home. If you're part of an organization, faith group, or any pod or grouping that you can ask for a meeting with your representative, call their office and say you want a meeting. The second thing is if you have any personal relationships, now is the time to call those folks directly. Could be donors, could be foundations, could be whoever you're thinking might know somebody who's, in these offices. We want to target the staffers as well, like they're the ones that work day to day with these electeds. So it's time to call in those personal favors. And for the ones who aren't listening, it is time to escalate, right? So we've had phone calls, we've had, different things happening, but we are asking folks to think about escalation. And so that is part of Bay Resistance is holding spokes council for organizations that are planning things and people that are planning things, but want folks to keep involved, right? And we do need to be creative and think about cultural strategy. How are we using art? How are we using other methods besides just the yelling and the banner drops, right? Like there's other things to do. So we're hoping folks during this winter time can think about how to integrate actions to support, this Palestinian movement, as well as pushing for the ceasefire. So I do also want to drop in some toolkits. There's some amazing work that's being done nationally. So the U.S. Campaign for Palestinian Rights has a great toolkit, has some information about security for your folks, how to do bird dogging, like all the different escalation tactics. And then there's also a toolkit from Dream Defenders. So we're going to drop those in the chat. And then in terms of other updates, we want to make sure that folks also just remember earlier in this call, AROC's calendar. That is the place where everyone is posting their actions. So if you're just like, oh, I've got a free Saturday, what can I do? Go to that calendar and you'll see things happening. If you actually want to organize your own actions, but you're not sure how to do that, Michelle and Annie, they're having a drop-in office hour right after this. So join that Zoom call. We'll put that also in the chat. And then as we go forward, we know that this isn't all going to just stop in the next few weeks. So we do want folks to stay connected. So make sure we have your information. You can go to Bay Resistance, CPE, APTP. There is also a week of action in January around Reclaim MLK Week. And so there's just a number of things happening with our different organizations where you can go and find out the latest information. So I'm going to stop there and see if there's any questions that we need to answer before we close out. And maybe ask the panelists if there's anything else we want to bring in today. Shayna, it's your hand up.
One thing I forgot to mention is that tomorrow, Family for Ceasefire, before the labor action from 12 to 1, is hosting a get-together. So in particular for parents who are new, who are trying to get involved or need care for their young kids while they meet with each other, but that's a place that you can plug in.
Thanks, Shayna. Are there so yes, Saturday is a big labor action, and that is another area where we've seen some labor unions take a position and others have not. So we are hoping that more groups join us. And just also for those of you, there was a lot of information. We will send a follow-up email with all the different links and probably the recording for folks that missed this. We had about 700 people sign up to be part of this today. And so while there's 200 on the call, we know there's a lot more interest. And so also we'll be doing this every Friday. So we invite folks to come learn. There'll be a little bit of learning, a little bit of check-in, and then updates every Friday. So we do encourage you to share this invitation out to folks. Okay, so any other last announcements from our sponsor, our co-sponsors? And any last questions? I'm gonna call on Annie. Are there any questions we need to answer out loud? Annie, are you there? Okay. Anything else from folks? Well, we want to just thank you. Look out for that follow-up email. If folks want to hang on and have any other questions, we'll stay on. And also, again, the Zoom call that's happening. Please stay posted. Thank you, everybody, for joining. I'm looking at the other panelists. Anything else?
Just thank you to our ASL interpreters, Kat and Shante, and for everything everyone is doing right now to keep the pressure on.
Right on. Take care, everybody.
Thank you. And hop on that other Zoom if you want to chit chat more about taking action. Thank you.
Thanks, Kimmy.